Okay, let's take a look at example number 2. Country music makes up 75% of Landon's music library. If he has downloaded 90 country music songs, how many songs does Landon have in his music library? So they have a double number line there. Let's kind of ignore that for a minute and let's set up our percent proportion. So we've got our 2 lines, 2 fraction bars, and our equal sign. What do we know in the problem that we're going to put into our percent proportion first? Autumn? So this is always percent out of 100, right? This is what we had in our notes, is over of equals percent out of 100. Is stands for the part, and of stands for the whole. So in case those words aren't there, we can still use those words, right? So what other piece of information do we have in this word problem that's going to be used in our percent proportion? Tori? 90. So we've got to determine if 90 is our part or if 90 is our whole. If he has downloaded 90 country music songs, how many songs does he have in his music library? Is 90 the part or the whole, and why? Mia? Why is it the part?
Because it says, it just says 90 country music songs, and it says, how many songs does he have in his whole music library?
Very good. So the question here is really looking for the whole, isn't it? We don't know how many he has in his whole library. That's what we're trying to find. So this is our missing piece of value. We could call it M, for that's his music library, right? Okay, it's just our missing piece. So this 90 has to be a part. 90 is the same thing as his 75%. Can I get from 75 to 90?
No.
No. So because I can't get from 75 to 90, I'm going to have to use those cross products. Okay, so to find the cross products, we're going opposite times opposite, right? So 90 times 100 gives us what? 9,000. Then we're taking the 9,000 and dividing by the remaining number, which is 75. If I go 9,000 divided by 75, I get 120. 120 what? 120 total songs in his library. Now let's think if that's logical and reasonable. If I put 120 up here, this becomes 90 out of 120, right? You simplified that fraction, what would it become? You could divide these by 10, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Which would give you 9 twelfths. You could divide those by 3, which would give you 3/4. What if you divide this by 25? What would you get? Are those equivalent?
Yeah.
Should they be?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're supposed to be equivalent, so that would be a check for us. Tells me that my 120 total songs is probably correct. In your INB today, we did the got it problems here at the bottom of this page. Okay, these ones here. So you might want to write yourself a note. These are in my INB. So if you want to look back at those, you can check your INB notes. Okay? Now let's go on to page 157. There's our percent proportion. Let's look at example 3. 15 is 30% of what number? I know they have it set up, but for our sake of practicing, let's set it up ourselves. So we have our fraction bar equals fraction bar. That'd be a ratio. And this, we're looking at this proportion. What are we going to put in our percent proportion first? Haley?
The percentage.
Percent. So this means 30% out of 100. We can always start with that percent first. I always do. Then I've at least narrowed it down, right? Now we have the opportunity to make one mistake. Here's the trickiest part. What's my other piece of information in the problem? Autumn? 15. Is 15 the is, the of, the part, or the whole?
The part.
The part, which is also the part also means is, right? And whole means of. means the same thing. So it said 15 is, it's the part. So 15 has to go here. Now, we like this one. This is our missing, we'll call it X, right? Why do we like this problem, this percent proportion? Tyler? Yep, so we can get directly there. How do I get from 30 to 15? And be careful that we're going the correct way. We want to go towards our missing value. So we're dividing by 2. Now, if you said multiplying by 2, that's going to give you a different answer. So we have to be careful. 100, we're going to do the same thing to the bottom that we did to the top. So they stay equivalent. We would get what? 50. So 50 would be our answer. Well, let's think about it. 15 out of 50. Is that pretty close to 30 out of 100? Yeah, because if you just multiply them both by 2, you get the same value, don't we? So we must be correct. That's logical and reasonable, so we can move on. Look at example 4. 225 is 75% of what number? They already set up the proportion for us. They actually even put in the 100 for us. So what do we need to put in? 75 needs to go where?
Above 100.
Above 100. Very good. Now that 225, is that the part or is it the whole? Is it the is or the of? The part, because it has the word is right behind it. Because 225 and 75, these are the same, aren't they? 225 is 75. They have to be in the same, they have to be lined up, both in the numerators. Now we have our missing value. We'll call it X again. Doesn't matter, it's just taking the place, right? Can I get from 75 to 225?
Yes.
Yay, that's good. So how do I get from 75 to 225? Times 3. So whatever I do to the top, I have to do to the bottom. So that gives me, since 75 times 3 is 225, we'd multiply 100 by 3, which tells me that 225 is 75% of 300. Is that reasonable? Yeah. Now, is it always going to be the part that's missing? No, sometimes it'll be the whole. I want you to go ahead and pause and take a minute to do these got it problems here, and then we'll check back. Go. All right, Tori is going to show us, grab the pen on the end, the letter D.
Okay. So I did 15% out of 100. And then 75 was the part because 75 is 15%. So I did 15 times 5 get to 75. So then I did 100 times 5 get 500.
How did you agree with Tori on letter D? You got 500. Very good. Zach, show us the letter E. There you go.
So I did 36% on top of 100 because it says 9 is 36% of what number. So then I did 9 over here because it says is.
What do you see between them?
What?
What do you put between those two?
And then I divided by 4 to get the 9. And then we have to do the same to the bottom. And I got 25 for my answer.
How many do you agree with Zach and got 25? Very good. Letter F.
I did 70% over 100 and equal to 7. And I divided by 10. Divided by 10 on the bottom. And got
Good. How many do you agree with me? I've got 10. Letter F. Good. Letter G.
I put 35 over 100. and then 7. And then I did that, divided by 5.
Good. How do we agree with Dash and get 20? Good. Now, these ones were nice and easy. We didn't have to really use cross products, did we? Is that always going to be the case? No. Sometimes we're going to have to use that cross product strategy to solve these problems. Look at the top of 158 real quick. Number 5. Before 1982, pennies were 95% zinc and 5% copper. If 100 pennies minted in 1980 have an approximate mass of 15 grams of copper, what is the total mass of 100 pennies? There's a lot of information here we don't need. Do we need to know anything about zinc? No. So we can get rid of, this 1982 doesn't apply, it's just a year, right? I don't need to know the zinc, so I might be crossing that out. Do I need to know the 1980? Nope, so I'm going to cross that out. The 100 pennies is going to be helpful, but it's only because that's part of a percent, right? So what is our percentage that we know for copper? Daily?
5%.
So we've got 5% out of 100 always. What's the other piece of information that we were given that's important for the copper? Dan?
That is 15 grams.
15 grams. Is that part or whole? That's part of the penny, right? So 15 grams. How do I get from 5 to 15?
Times 3.
Times 3. So 100 times 3 would tell me
300.
300. So we would say the total mass of 100 pennies is 300 grams. Okay? Remember that it won't always be that this is the part. Sometimes it will be the whole. Those are the ones we're going to work on a little bit more tomorrow. Okay? For tomorrow, you'll notice in the guided practice that there are double number lines and the directions say to use the double number lines for 1 and 2. You do not have to use the double number lines. Okay? I want you to do guided practice for tomorrow, which is on page 158, 1 through 6. Okay, 1 through 6 is homework for tomorrow. You may get started.